Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome back to the best of Board Game Geeks, the top 100 games as ranked by this very popular board game website, and my opinions on them. I've gone through 70 so far. We are now in the top 30. So far, of the other 70, I have played 67 of them, so I think I'm doing okay. But let's see what happens as we get down to the top 30. Let's get started right away. We're going to start with A Feast for Odin. Now, this one, I have to say, I'm a little surprised that it's ranked higher than many of his other games, like, for example, Le Havre. Don't get me wrong, A Feast for Odin is rapidly becoming one of my favorite games, but it's overwhelming sometimes. Let me show you this board, this picture of the board here for A Feast for Odin. Yet another game by Uwe Rosenberg in the top 100. But this is the actual board for the game for worker placement. You can put workers in any of these spaces here. I think there's 60 or 30, I don't remember. There's a lot of spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, there's a ton of space to put people. Now, some of these require one worker, some require two, some require three, some require four. And all these workers are coming to the point where you're going to be covering up islands or your main board. See, this is another one that harkens back to Patchwork, where you're going to be putting different things on your island. So here's Iceland covered up with all these different things. You're trying to cover up as much spots as possible because each spot you don't cover up is going to lose you points. You also have the whole Feast of Odin here, where you need to have food that you're giving to these people here at the Feast of Odin. But the whole point of this game is to have your board, and you're trying to cover it up, but you're doing that by trading in resources and getting points in various ways so that you can score, because here's a board that's not covered up. Look at all those -1s you'll get at the end of the game if you don't have this all covered up. Certain areas, if you don't cover them up, will give you resources. Some of these tiles can be converted into other ones. There's a lot going on in this game, and I like it. It's a heavier game for sure, A Feast for Odin. There's a lot going on and a lot of components in it, but I feel like the whole game comes together in a very satisfying way. And while I wouldn't say it's his number one, like I said, that's Le Havre. I also like Caverna better than this one too, but it's a good, strong third for me. It's just not one that I would play with everyone. Number 29 is Robinson Crusoe, Adventures on the Cursed Island. Now, this is a cooperative game, and here you can see the picture of the second edition, down here a little tiny picture of the first edition. But in this game, you are discovering a new island, or you're doing some sort of adventure. All these adventures in Robinson Crusoe, they're scenario based. So in this board, and here's all the components, there's a ton of components in this game. You pick a scenario. So the first scenario is Robinson Crusoe. There's a scenario in the book that's Swiss Family Robinson. There's some where you're fighting the cannibal pygmies of doom or whatever. And you have these characters, and you're going to be slowly building up a board and exploring, and different events are going to happen to you. Now, some of the things that people like about Robinson Crusoe is that the events that you run into might come back to haunt you later on. You get bit, and later on that might get infected. You might go find some baby birds and eat them, and then their mama bird comes back for you later. I'm not saying whether these things are real or not. It's completely up to you. But you have to survive together. And there's so many things you need to do. You need to build shelter. You need to get food. You need to watch out for weather. You need to make weapons so you can go out and hunt the animals. You need to deal with whatever the thing is that makes you win. And there's dice and worker placement. This game is just phenomenal. They just came out last year with a Mars version of it, First Martians, which does not seem to have the same popularity that Robinson Crusoe does. But Robinson Crusoe is a fantastic, fun game. Highly recommended by me, and obviously people agree with me. Okay, well, we have now reached the fourth game that I have not played yet, and this is Food Chain Magnate. Now, Food Chain Magnate is a game from Splotter Games. Splotter makes a lot of games, and one of the problems I have with Food Chain Magnate, I think the cover itself looks great. I love the idea of the theme too, but when you look at the board here, does this look like a finished game? I believe that is paper money here next to essentially a square grid. Now, I've heard that this game's great, and I know that once I post a review, I will once again some people, why haven't you played this yet? Well, folks, mostly time. And I know this is an in-depth game. Splotter games are not games that I'm a big fan of for the most part, but I know they're fairly in-depth Euro games, and this one is the highest rated of all of them, I think. And you're opening up fast food restaurants and trying to get people to come to your restaurants. You're in each other's face to some degree. And there's a lot of different things going on here. And I like that concept. I like the idea of opening a restaurant. And so I would not say no if this came across and someone said, hey, why don't you try this one out? It's just that couldn't they have made the game look a little nicer? Now, the cards are fantastic looking. And these pieces even aren't that terrible, but just that board. Anyhow. I figured this one would be on the list. I'm not surprised to see it in the top 100 because it's just that popular, and the people who like it love it. All right, let's get the games I have played now, and here's Eclipse. Second edition is coming out this year. Now, Eclipse suffers from some of us. When I say some of us, this is mostly me and Sam and other people around us, from being compared to Twilight Imperium. It's just going to be. Because it's a space game, it's somewhat of an epic game. It certainly is shorter than Twilight Imperium, but when you take a look here at this picture, you are thinking, hey, that's a big epic space game. It's not nearly as epic, but it has a lot of good things going for it. So I want to be clear that I like this game. I don't dislike it, but there are things in it that I find problematic. One, I feel like the game is more about economics than it is about space. I think that when you win a battle, the victory point chips given after that are a little random for my tastes, and the way technology happens is a little random for my taste too. But that being said, there's a lot of good aspects to this. You're keeping track of a lot of different things. I'm very excited about the second edition. I think it's going to show a lot of things, and it does have plastic ships, and you get to look at this really cool board. So this game was really big, and now I don't hear it talked about as much, but I imagine that's going to change when the second edition comes out. So what number were we at again? 27? That's pretty high ranking. Not surprised. Speaking of economics, 26 is all about economics, and that's Power Grid. Now, Power Grid is one of those odd games that is a heavier Euro-style game, and yet me, Sam, Z, all three of us like it. It should be too long for Z. It should be too mathy for Sam. And yet, everyone likes it. In this game, you have a map of some part of the world, depends on what expansion you're playing with. In the base game, I think it was the United States or Germany, and you are building power stations and trying to power up different cities. So you can see on this board here, the people are trying to power up different parts of America, and you have to pay money to expand your network to other cities, but you're trying to get these power stations. So you can see here, there's different power stations which will give power a certain number of cities, but they're also going to need coal and oil and trash and uranium, and even some don't need any resources at all. So you have to figure out what's the best time to buy. When these power stations go up, there's an auction for them. You have to decide which of these auctions, which power stations you want to use. I really like this game. There's a lot going on in it, and you're constantly saying, which power stations do I need? How do I expand on the board? How much money do I have to expand on the board and or bid on the different things and get the resources I need to run my power stations? There's just a lot going on, and I love it. It is definitely a heavier style game. The first time you get into it, you're gonna probably struggle, like knowing how much to bid on things and which power stations to get. But overall, it is a fantastic game, and it even scales to 6. I don't think I'll ever play it with 6 again, but you can do it. Power Grid. All right, now we're at number 25, Orleans. Orleans is a game that just came out a few years ago. Let's take a look here at the stats for Orleans. 2014. All right, so 4 years ago now. It came out near the end of 2014. This is the first that I remember playing bag building game. And in this game, you're going to be pulling discs from a bag and placing them onto a board. So the discs are going to come out randomly. So here's a picture of the board that you have. And you're going to be able to, this person is doing really well being able to fill up their whole board here. And you're going to place these people on this thing, and then they will give you something. So for example, this castle, if I place the white, the yellow, and the black there, it will give me another red worker that I can throw in my bag. At the top, if I place a white, black, and yellow, I can move one of my pieces on another board, which is going to give me resources. So you're keeping track of your own board, pulling discs. You have another board here. You can see in this picture, you can see the board over here that players are moving on, and then another board here in which players are going to keep track of how many discs they bought of each color, which also gives you benefits. Or you can buy these cogs here, and when you put them in a spot, you don't have to place workers there anymore. This game is phenomenally fun. Now this is the not beautiful edition that Tasty Mincer put out, a gorgeous edition. But I'll tell you what, if Tasty Mincer hadn't done that, I would still like this game because it's just so much fun. Pulling the things, getting the resources, figuring out the right thing to have at the right time and putting them out. And there's 2 expansions for Orleans, and both of them really help improve the game for the better, in my opinion. There's also a sequel to it, Altiplano, which just came out, which some people say is better than Orleans. We'll have to wait and see. For now, I think Orleans still has the edge for me. All right, number 24 is Concordia. Now, Concordia is a game which I would consider to be a hand-building game. In Concordia, you have a map here. Let me show you this map in which you're going to be building You have these boats that you're putting out there, and guys, and you're kind of building and expanding a network. And at the top of the board, you're going to buy more cards for your hand. When you play a card, you get the action on that card. But some cards are going to give you better actions, and you'll be able to buy them. So it's not necessarily a deck building game, it's a card building game. But you're also trying to spread your network on the board. You're trying to get resources. There's a nice little thing here where when you get resources, you flip over the tiles here at the top of the board that turn into coins, and you can unflip all those coins, but the more you wait to let it go over, the more coins you get, so there's kind of like a push your luck aspect to it. The game is really not that beautiful of a game. It's just a map of Italy or whatever the map is. There's several new maps that have come out for it, and there's different resources that you can get that you can trade in for things. But it doesn't look that fantastic, but it plays really well, and I know a lot of people really enjoy just how smooth the gameplay is. Let's play a card, see what the actions are. It's very interactive. I'm constantly watching you and everyone else to see what things are being done and cards are being played when. Definitely check out Concordia. Number 23 is one of the greatest Euro games of all times, and that's Viticulture Essential Edition, or just Viticulture, but the Essential Edition adds in some of the stuff from the first expansion, Tuscany, which really makes the game that much better. So Viticulture is a game about making wine. You're going to grow the crops, you're going to harvest the crops, you're going to make the wine, let the wine age, and then sell it for victory points, serve it in different places. And so you can see here on this picture, what this game does that's pretty fascinating is it splits the game into 2 seasons, and you're placing some of your workers in the summer, but you got to save some for the winter and place them in that season too. And if you play with the expansion, you have 4 seasons, and it's way even better. But you have so many options. You know, what buildings are you going to build that will help you and give you small benefits? Which spots are you going to go to? You're going to save all your workers for the winter season? Which wines are you going to try to bottle? Which summer and winter workers you're going to get, which are going to change the game because they give you special abilities. I love this game. I've enjoyed every single moment of it, and it shows that Jamie Stegmaier is a master. That's Viticulture Essential Edition. Number 22 is Star Wars Imperial Assault. Earlier in this list, I talked about Descent 2nd Edition, which was a reprint of Descent, which was a reprint of Doom. The Star Wars Imperial Assault comes after Descent 2. They took a lot of the ideas of Descent and they added in Star Wars. But they didn't just add in Star Wars, they also cleaned everything up and gave you 2 games in this box. You have one game which is like Descent, where one person controls the Imperials, the other team, everyone else controls a plucky rebel who's going to go in there and fight against the Imperials. They're fighting concurrently alongside of Star Wars, so you might see Luke Skywalker, Chewbacca, Han Solo, Darth Vader show up, but they're not going to take over the game. You are the characters, you are the heroes, you're going to fight a lot of stormtroopers and things. So that's one game that's in the box. Another game is just a tactical game where there's point values assigned to all the pieces, so I can have Vader and a couple stormtroopers go up against Luke and Chewbacca. Inside a little thing, we run around, we have special cards, we play them. I actually like the second game better as time goes by. Maybe the first game is just as good, but it's more involved, right? Because it's a scenario based, and you could play this campaign for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. But the first game, you just grab some people, pick some point values, and play the game. Very, very fun. They've come out with a lot of expansion packs with a lot of different things. I mean, Jabba the Hutt, the Rancor, almost all the main characters, bounty hunters. There's a lot of different pieces. You can build your own maps. You can play this tactical thing, or just, here they have all the figures painted. I think my figures are painted too. And so here's like one of the tactical maps. They show you where the different things happen. It's not just go in and blow the other person up. Sometimes it's get contraband and run. This is, if you like Star Wars, we've already talked about Star Wars X-Wing. There's X-Wings in space, that's that part. This is X-Wing on the ground. And they really did it justice. It's not just the IP slapped on. And finally, our last game in this video is Mechs vs. Minions. Now, this came out of nowhere from a gigantic company, Riot Games, who's best known for making the MOBA-style game. And this here is based on that universe, League of Legends, but it's not the same type of game. It's a co-op game for the first part, and you have up to four different people, and you're working together to fight off waves and waves of minions. Now you look at these pieces here, and you see these painted miniatures, and you're waiting for me to say, yes, they don't come painted. But the fact is they do. And they come inside vacuum sealed trays. This is what the box looks like. The box is bigger than I can fit on the screen here. And there's all sorts of cool pieces and metal coins and things. And yes, on one sense, it's easy to get distracted by that because the game is beautiful and gorgeous, and the amount of money that they charge for this game is ridiculous. But the gameplay is fun too. It's a scenario-based game where you're going to go in a scenario and you're going to be fighting against hordes of minions, and you have to work together and program your guys to go around and fight these waves that just keep swarming in and in and in. And I really like how the whole game, the whole production comes together. It's a beautiful production, but it's also a good game, and it's co-op, and it's a lot of fun, and it's an IP that a lot of people like. So that's Mechs vs. Minions. That's also it. We're now down to the top 20. We'll get back to that next time. What are your opinions of these 10 games? Do they deserve or not deserve to be in the top? Well, it doesn't matter if they don't deserve, they're there whether you like it or not. But anyway, until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Board Game Geek Top 100 Games on the Dice Tower. See you next time.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.